Set in the roleplayer universe, Lockup tasks you with becoming the best crew in prison.
Ooh, you're hard, showing off.
The player board lets you arrange your workers and your power for your worker with the fist, and then you will take from your worker pool any amount of workers and place them into one area. You can only place into an area once, so how many you place is an important decision. Remember, the fist equals the amount of power on your player board, and the eye token stops you taking suspicion. To add to the shenanigans, you may place one or two of your tokens face down to try and bluff your opponents. So here purple has placed a 2 and another one face down, and yellowy green decides to place 2 face down with a 5 to scare off anyone else. On the reveal stage, after everyone has placed all their workers, the crew with the highest strength or power will take the top reward, and the other rewards will be doled out as per. The crew with the highest power without an eye also takes a suspicion cube. Here I will pan smoothly and professionally through the board. Each area resolves in order, so the exercise yard down to the sewers, following the path on the board. The main areas give you different types of resources which can be used. The commissariat lets you trade resources. The chow hall lets you hire a goon. The cell block lets you take an item or craft an item, and the guard room lets you remove suspicion. The library is a bit different because you're only placed there when you don't win a resource. Crew will give you various endgame scoring points. If you've played roleplayer, you'll be familiar to these. Basic set collection with a few little twists on. The items will give you either permanent powers or just an endgame score. They cost various resources to build, so here we need 2 slime sewer things, 2 blue bits and a grey bit, and then we'll get that reward. This can be extra space to store goods or endgame scoring icons. The game is over after 6 rounds, with the player with the most score being the hardest. Lockup is a strange beast for me. When I heard that a new game was coming in the roleplay universe, I expected something that was more similar, perhaps in mechanics, to roleplayer, rather than just a fresh game set in that universe. So for me, the biggest links between the two games were the graphic design of the cards and the icons, which I'm instantly familiar with, instantly recognised from roleplayer, and felt at home with. This is a clever worker placement game in terms of mechanics, and I think it's a good game. It's a game that I would play. I would just like to see this mechanic of worker placement influence, which has been played with in games like Outlive and things like that. I'd like to see where that can go. And I think while this is a good game, a very good game, I enjoy it, I'd play it, definitely. I look forward to this mechanic being taken up a notch. So that's kind of encapsulating my thoughts. But let's look at this mechanic. This mechanic where you can play all on 1 to 6 of your workers on your first go, when you've still got 6, into one place, but then you can't place there again, and you can place 2 of them face down. This is really intriguing because you have so many choices. You're looking at where you want to go. Do you immediately go somewhere where you want to go and place one face down to kind of scare everyone off that you've put your 5 there, or if you've got your guy with a fist who can charge up as you go by collecting strength, you know, people are going to be like, whoa, I need to put a lot in there to go. Or do you just throw your 2 in there because you didn't want to go there anyway, and you want to go somewhere else that you're going to brute force into later when other people have played theirs? I like the fact that more than one person, in more than a 2-player game anyway, get rewards, but the first player gets the most rewards and the most benefit, but they also risk getting the suspicion. Suspicion isn't totally bad, in that the only kind of effect it has on you is that if you have the least suspicion, you're going to score a whole wedge of points. So it can be ignored to an extent if what you're doing is getting you those points. The set collection through the goons is familiar to those who've played, well, any game, but particularly role player. That all makes sense. You're collecting symbols, or you're collecting the same of one type of person. And the other places of losing suspicion, that works really well. It's worthwhile going there, especially if the guards are just about to raid on the next turn. I also really like the library, which is a place that you cannot place into, but if you get evacuated from an area with by someone who's stronger than you with no reward, all your ones go into the library, and then you get rewards in the library, which come in terms of come as one-off power cards that you can use throughout the game. So it's neat, it all works really well. My game was not the final production, it was the prototype, and in the final game you're going to get these little almost like Scrabble rails with bars across them where you put your inmates. The theme is not a prison escape, but gaining reputation while you're in prison, becoming the best crew while you're in prison. And that's really interesting. I'm not sure how well it comes across for me, but I did enjoy the worker placement mechanic and the bluffing of playing two face down. So, if you like role player and want to explore the world more, you've got to understand that this is a completely different game. Yes, it's set in the universe of role player, but the mechanics are worker placement with a little bit of set collection and going for points. You're getting resources mainly to make items. And in that way, although they're not quests, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Lords of Waterdeep, because you're getting cubes to get items that give you points and potentially some powers and stuff like that. I really enjoyed my time with it. I didn't absolutely love it, and I think that's just because as I review a lot of games, I see a lot of mechanics come over and over and over again. And the bit that excited me about this was the bluffing and the placing of the workers. But I wanted to see that in a more interesting overall setting for me. So for me, a prison breakout is more exciting than just being the hardest crew in prison. And for me, the link between role player is just in lore, it's not in mechanics, although I do really like the role player graphic design, so that's good for me, but I'm not one who gets into all the backstory and stuff. So it's a solid worker placement game with a great little differential in the way you place your workers. If you have Lords of Waterdeep and Stone Age and some of those kind of level of games, you might not need this one, but you might want to replace one of those with this one due to the interesting placement of your workers. Thanks very much for watching Board Deck and Dice. We will see you next time.